When goals won't work. Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. I like seeing you again. It's fun. I love being here and being able to have our conversations on a nightly basis. And I love to be able to actually talk back and forth with you. So if you ever have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'm Brian Pombo. If this is your first time, I am a business investor. I have nearly 3 years worth of content going back all the way on nearly a nightly basis. So you could see that over at brianjpombo.com/media. You go to the media section and go and check that out. And wherever you're watching or listening to this, you can also see what we have archived there on whatever format you're watching or listening on. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about goal setting, because it is one of those things that it's necessary, but I think quite often it overshadows everything else as being the only thing that's necessary. And I don't think it is. I don't think it is the main driver is setting a goal. I do believe that it is necessary to have one, especially if you're dealing with more than one person in the direction of your goal. If you have other people that are involved, it's important that everyone knows where you're going and when you expect to get there, and make sure it's something that's specific and measurable so that you actually know when you're there versus just having a feeling about it. So goals are important, but there are certain periods of time where you can't work with a goal. A goal isn't going to help. And a lot of that happens in the early days when you're fleshing out the idea of what it is you're actually trying to accomplish. Because you may not know. You may have a whole bunch of different things that you know work, a whole bunch of talents that you have, a whole bunch of different types of people you might like to work with, and you're just kind of tossing things around trying to figure it out. I had a great conversation yesterday with a fellow named Shane Russell, and Shane is running a company called Spirit of the Fair. He has a background in working within the fair industry, and he wanted to see, okay, how can we take this and apply it year-round to many different organizations and businesses? How can we allow everybody to synergistically work together and use some of these concepts that he came across while marketing in the fair industry? So it's an interesting concept, and he's been working a good 3 years straight from I believe, I remember from our conversation. You'll be able to hear that when it comes out over at the Grants Pass VIP podcast, grantspassvip.com. But before then, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about his story, because I find it interesting, and it's a story that I find myself in quite often, which is you end up having a whole lot of things you'd like to do, a whole lot of things you're interested in, a whole lot of things that you may be good at on top of that. So you got the things you're passionate about, the things that interest you, and then you also have the things that you're actually good at, that you have something that you're good at. And sometimes those things don't completely overlap, but there's always some area where they do. And then there's things of which you think, though, it will actually have an economic interest, that it'll actually fit in with somebody paying you money to do it. And that's sometimes the toughest thing to find, especially if you're a passionate entrepreneur. You have a whole lot of things you're interested in, but not necessarily know how to best take it to market. So we had a little bit of that conversation going on, and it reminded me a whole lot of my entrepreneurial journey has been doing the same thing, where you're trying to figure out exactly how to make all these wonderful toys, all these wonderful things that you have. How do you make them function and be a viable, marketable product to enough people, and have it have a standard to where you could produce predictable income off of it, which is the idea of business, is actually finding some profit eventually, right? So that's an interesting concept, and it brought me back to a lot of those early years, and a lot of the place that I find myself going back to again and again every time we start a new business venture or start a new idea. In those early days, you can't develop a goal because you don't know where you're going. here's the problem with that. You have to allow yourself that space to do that. And you have to also realize that if you do not have a goal, if you do not have a specific place that you're planning to take it, you can't expect much. Now, a whole lot of things are going to get thrown against the wall, and quite possibly nothing is going to stick. These are things you just have to expect. So you got both of those worlds happening at the same time. On one hand, you have to allow yourself, depending on your personality and your conation, you have to allow yourself some space to experiment. But at the same end, you can't expect anything to come from it, because you don't expect anything, because you haven't specified something that you expect to come from it. So you play with it, you see what it produces on its own, but you don't really know where you're going quite yet. As soon as you can define it and start working towards a goal, that's a great place to be in. And when you realize that that isn't necessarily the goal you want to, you have to allow yourself the flexibility to change that goal and move it and adjust things where they need to go. Not because you think you can't make it, but because you understand the goal better and you understand more about what it is that you want and what it is you can best create. So hopefully that makes sense. A whole lot of this goes into the thought patterns and planning, and it's kind of my specialty when it comes to strategy. It's a planning art, right? And so if you're really needing help in helping, if you really know what you're after, and then you just need to know how to get there, that's kind of why I wrote my book, 9 Ways to Amazon Proof Your Business. You have a business model, you're in the process. Now, how do I get from point A to point B? When you're at that point, go and check out this book. Go grab yourself a copy at Amazon.com, or if you don't mind reading it off your phone or tablet or PC, go download a free copy, AmazonProofBook.com. That's all I have for tonight. It's a simple idea. Why don't you sit with it a little bit and let me know what your questions and comments are about this. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Do you think goals are always necessary, or do you think there are periods of time when you just can't possibly wrap a goal around a nebulous idea? So you have a good night. Think about that one. We'll be back tomorrow. In the meantime, get out there and let the magic happen.